whatever it takes. Pros being pulled, but the SCV's coming at the perfect moment here.
We are back. We're about ready to hop into game number 2 as both players are preparing and getting ready for this next matchup. HuK did win that first game. State looking to bring it back. And before we hop into this next game, I want to talk to you about another one of MLG's partners with a special promo code this weekend. Of course, all of the monitors that are being used here at the MLG Spring Championship provided by BenQ, and there is a promo code to get up to $50 off of one of the MLG tournament monitors or $20 off of a brand new gaming monitor. You can visit shop.benq.us, and these things are glorious. I really like them. I've got 2 at home. And
they're great monitors.
They are. And that's just for the weekend, I believe.
Yes.
So you've been considering now might be the time to get in there and pick it up. And you know the other thing too, people have been asking, VODs, I came in late, I missed this match. Well, every VOD is being posted almost about 30 minutes before or after the match has ended, so you can head on over to MLG.tv and make sure if you missed any action, you catch up on it as quickly as possible.
That's right, a lot of great content. Always comes out fast for you guys if you miss any match. But here we are. HuK won that first map. But State's got me thinking, you know what? Those DTs really kind of caught me off guard. I had to scramble to make my defense. I was trading inefficiently in a couple engagements, and then his follow-up attack was too strong. I just got to make sure I don't get caught off guard again, and I'll be able to put forth a much better game.
Yeah, and I mean, you know, State, I mean, how do you chalk that one up? You know, like, I didn't get the scout off. If I would have gotten it off, how different would that game would have been? I know that, you know, I got to imagine that State's mindset is, it's okay, erased, I can do this. It was a mistake, and you know, we'll see if he can try to not make those mistakes here. But talk to me. Actually, let's introduce the players, and I'd love to hear what you think about this particular map on PvP. So let me introduce the players here in the northwest position as the Red Protoss, up 1 game in this best-of-3 series. Give it up for EG's HuK. And in the southeast position, as the blue Protoss down a game and wants to win this one to take it to 3. Give it up for State. Now going back to what I was saying, talk to me about this particular map. You know, I imagine that in some aspects it's a lot like Akalon Waste when it comes to PvP.
It is. Blink Stalkers are probably slightly more popular on this map than Akalon Waits. There's a little bit more of a gap between your opponent trying to defend their natural and then trying to run back to their main to defend with the Blink in there. Just because the natural is a little bit offset from that ramp, right? I mean, if you're trying to cover that entrance, it's about a full screen away from the ramp, so you got to cover a lot of distance to cover Blink attacks. And also, there's so many routes across the map. You can go along the left side, the right side. There's even like 2 ramps in the middle. So if you have Blink Stalkers, you can really use the maneuverability to have such a great presence on the map. And the watchtowers are so important. Blink Stalkers, of course, help you control those 2 very important central watchtowers. So I think it's likely we'll see one of these players go Blink Stalkers. Of course, with HuK, he can do just about anything. He's so crazy with some of these mind games. And State is actually one of the most emotional players. He takes losses extremely difficult. So, you know what? Well, that last game was kind of just a scouting error, like we talked about. It's something that could slip into his head, and it might get to him.
And that's totally understandable. You know, I think this is a subset skill that players have to learn. They have to be able to turn that off. And I mean, yeah, I know I'm the same way. I get emotional when I play games. It's just, you know, it's because I care about it. I'm passionate about it. But I understand that, and you know, sometimes being able to turn that off, it can be really hard, no matter how much tournament experience you have. Especially if you're the type of player who will beat himself up over that. Like, I could have won that if only I would have, you know, done this or that. So it's always important to keep that clear mind and try to, you know, to attack every single game like it's a fresh one.
Looks like most people are betting on HuK here with about an 83 to 17% fade ratio. Of course, he is the guy who's won 2 past MLG tournaments, but as of late, he hasn't shown those big results, so he's really looking forward to put his name back on the map as one of those premier players. And State's probe not even going to get into the main of HuK. In fact, just going to check around the edges. Of course, HuK hasn't yet probe scouted. That's basically standard for him in PvP. He almost never probe scouts. And the reason why he's confident that he can hold any cheese off of his opening build, and also he's not really worried too much about what his opponent's up to.
Yeah, and I mean, this changes things up a little bit too because, well, interesting. So HuK, this time he decides, you know what, I feel like he's not going to be able to get in. I sent that probe away, so I'm going to send my first zealot out, go ahead and send my mothership core out, send the first stalker too, and then throw down the Twilight Council again.
Oh, and he spotted a very fast expansion from State. How is HuK going to respond? He can either go for a very committed one-base attack, or he can try to expand himself back. 2 more gateways being added on by HuK. He's definitely going to want to try to take State out early here. Yeah,
and what do we have? Additional gateway, and you know, with the Nexus, I think he has to throw down that robotics facility. I mean, it's just he can't be left without detection. You know, and the follow-up obviously as well. So what are we going to have come out? Actually, another gateway comes down, so it is going to be Blink here.
4-gate Blink from HuK. State going up to Robo and adding 3 additional gateways. And look at State realizes his opponent hasn't expanded. His opponent spotted his expansion, which means HuK is going to be coming at him with all guns blazing. Oh, he can't lose that mothership core. That's so important.
He absolutely cannot, and he is working on this Nexus hard. We're going to have the sentries come out immediately. The fire goes to the sentries, and he doesn't want to lose those either. Every single unit here with a very sharp 100 gas a cost on it, and this Nexus is low, 450 hit points. We don't, oh yes, there's the first warp bit coming. Now the mothership is being targeted down by the photon overcharge. He's gonna go for it.
Oh, look at that time warp, the sentries are stuck. If he loses those, oh, 1 goes down. He does take out a stalker, but the photon overcharge has been used. The mothership core is dead. And HuK was happy to make that photon overcharge being used now. You really want to use it when the Blink Stalkers come in. Being forced to use it this early is disastrous for State because HuK's going to sit back, wait it out, and then come in with a whole lot of Blink Stalkers.
Right, and then what can you do? I mean, especially when you've got your Nexus that's about to fall. Anyway, you can see that he somewhat abandoned this expansion. He's got the Immortal at the ramp inside his main. He's getting a second one out right now. And he did throw down 4 force fields and lost one as well. But hello. Oh, how unfortunate. As there is a pylon from State inside the main base of HuK, but HuK's mothership core finds it. Now there's nothing. It's going to get in as he can. I don't think he can afford to warp anything in there and be safe about it.
Yeah. I was going to try warping.
He's going to do 2 zealots.
He has 2 mortals back at home, so he's pretty safe from any Blink Stalker attacks going towards his main, but these zealots are really not doing too much here. Maybe 1 or 2 probes at best. And HuK's going to be happy with that because when you're at 1 base versus 1 base, even 200 minerals is a pretty big blow. I mean, that's half the cost of a Nexus there. So State's lost his Nexus. He lost the early mothership core. He lost the early sentry. Now he just lost 2 more zealots, and he's about, 650 resources behind his opponent in resources lost. And that means HuK can feel free to expand whenever he wants.
Yeah, he's also going to get supply blocked right there, so that's another 2 pylons that have to go down. So he not only gets out of that supply block, but then gets further along in supply. And now we're going to see this Elucidated Phoenix see that the Nexus has gone down, see everything else inside, and I mean, has a pretty good idea on what HuK's capabilities are at this point. We've got another attack as the pylon does fall. That's going to supply block HuK. He does not want to commit to try to stop those units, and I wouldn't either with the 2 Immortals. He's got a pretty soft army compared to State right now.
So HuK knows he's a little bit ahead, but of course, he's not light years ahead. Yes, State lost about 600 minerals of resources early, but HuK also cut some probes early, and State has a stronger composition in a straight-on engagement. Of course, HuK has the map control with a superior number of Blink Stalkers. The State trying to get Blink of his own, but he has those 2 Immortals to really ground his army and give it that better cost efficiency in a straight-up engagement until he runs across the map and runs into the fact that HuK actually has some zealots and sentries of his own, which are excellent against Immortals.
Yeah, and here we got Blink coming out for State as well. So we have more small engagements here inside, or just right outside the natural of State. Now, one thing to note here, too, is that in all of this, a part of the build is that we did, of course, see HuK throw down that Forge. So he is starting to get a little bit ahead on the upgrades as well, as we don't even see a Forge in play. He's just working on getting that Nexus back up, but I do feel like we're going into at least a little bit longer game. Now we have the Warp Prism coming out from HuK, which I do like. If you've got the ability, you've got obviously your opponent sort of contained within their own base, one of the best things you can do is start to separate them out and really get them to focus their attention also inside the main. So
HuK loves to be on attack. He loves to have map control. Right now he's posing aggressively.
Oh wow, there's actually no response from State. He has a couple of units on hold position. It's going to prevent him from not losing any, but some force fields throw down, and once again, HuK is just kind of like applying a little bit of pressure here, but then backing off, and now we have a Dark Shrine going down for State.
And this could be great. I mean, yes, HuK has that one observer with his army, but there's a proxy pile in this third base. If DTs can be warped in there, cross in, they can even take out HuK's natural. They could take out probes. They could do a tremendous amount of damage to HuK if he doesn't spot this threat.
Now, and there's a Warp Prism over on State side too. HuK is about ready to come in on the east side of the map in the back with this Warp Prism. He's going to stop just outside. Meanwhile, he's moving forward to take this tower. HuK sees it with the vision he's got, and I think he's going to have to actually retreat out of there, and that means that, well...
But State's army's being drawn further away from his base. If HuK can load up the Warp Prism full units and Warp-in units, State will not have enough units back there to defend both the Unload and the Warp-in unless he uses the recall.
And here it comes. He's going to have to, I think, as he goes inside. We've got the first Dark Templar coming out as well. And now we've got the Zealots dropping into the main mineral line. What is the reaction? Well, HuK is also going to advance forward in the middle of the map at the exact same time. Do we have a Warp-in at all? No, there's the recall back home. And those Zealots are going to fall, but he actually manages to get a couple of those sentries too in that. That was a great attack for HuK.
It was, and in fact, his defense is very solid as well. His army was drawn back to his base, so his observer was in a great position to defend. DTs have done absolutely nothing so far. Another small win for HuK.
Now, I'm not sure what happened to that first DT, but another one's coming in from the third base. We've also got this Warp Prism just south of the main of HuK, waiting to also get in an assault. He did not warp in right there. He's going to go ahead and warp in just under the site of that pylon. One single Dark Templar is going to be thrown out here. And is there... Yep, the Observer with the army should be able to take that out, no problem. In fact, he like wants to make sure that DT is going to die.
Extra dead.
Yeah, extra dead. So Photon Overcharge does go off, and that'll be it.
So one thing we're seeing is it seems like HuK's been winning small victory over small victory throughout this game. The supplies are very even. That's because all the advantages HuK has had, he's been investing to gain superior upgrades and superior tech. He's got the faster upgrades on the Forge. He also has Charge done, and he's going for a Charge Archon composition, which is much superior in a straight engagement to just Blink Stalkers and a few Immortals.
And a few Stalkers are going to get trapped as they get a little cheeky to try to go in and do some damage there to the probe line of the natural of HuK. These Stalkers dancing around, but I'll tell you what, I think that they are treading in dangerous waters. They almost got sandwiched there, saved only by the blink. And I mean, at this point, I could see potentially third, HuK thinking about a third over here. He's going to find another DT with an observer as well. So another loss, unfortunately, for State.
These are expensive units too. Each Dark Templar is 250 resources, half that being gas. Blink Stalker's trying to get in there and harass the natural, but HuK's defense is very solid. Now, HuK has one of two options with the small lead he has right now. He can either use the fact his army's stronger out in the open to go ahead and take a third and deny State's third, or he could try to go for attack on State's natural. But if he doesn't do one of those two things in the next several minutes, once a couple of Colossi come out of the field, all of a sudden State may have the better army composition.
And HuK's Warp Prism, it does come in from the southwest. Some Stalkers see it very early on, are able to follow him all the way there. And that's just one additional thing that he's got to worry about here, as he's going to try to potentially establish this third. But I think now that he knows the army is on its way, and he's going to confirm that with these Stalkers, he really cannot put that down. He's also got to be careful about that Warp Prism coming back in or reinforcing from the side, and that's exactly what he's going to do here. In fact, he could just poise up here at the tower. He's got these three Archons as well. Move forward and then also assault from the main base. But actually, he's going to assault the third with those Zealots. There's no Nexus there, but yeah. He's
just trying to keep State, make sure State's on two bases. But you know what?
Yep.
If you're on two bases, your opponent's on two bases, the person going to Colossi is going to have the advantage. So it's actually on HuK to make something happen before the Colossi count grows too big. He's thinking about coming in here, but that's not a good angle. But actually, State may be overextending. Oh, he's backing up. He's got to be so careful. Now, Warp Prism's going to the main. If State gets too distracted.
Well, this is, I mean, he's got to choose. How's he going to split up this army, right? He's going to probably try to warp some units in. That was the scouting Warp Prism right there.
Oh, and look at this great use of a DT, denying the third of HuK. As long as they're both on two bases, State has advantage. HuK's realizing he can't break State's defense. His third isn't super fast, so he's trying to transition to air units, deal with the Colossi composition that State's putting together right now.
Now, the question is like, does HuK have to remain in a completely defensive posture? And hold on, we have another warp in, a DT, no, 2 DTs and 3 Zealots inside the main base of HuK, almost completely undefended. Not sure how his warp gates are doing in terms of cooldown, but he's got plenty of warp ins. He is going to go ahead and take care of that.
Oh, there's no detection. He's
right.
got the warp, and there's no detection. The cannon went down, and he's losing Blink Stalkers here.
Oh.
This DT's having a field day, and meanwhile, HuK's actually caught in a little bit of a weird position, but the Zealots are staying. A lot of them are segmented. Great force fields cut along the right side, and HuK is pushed back.
Wow, and he's going to possibly lose a couple more of these units as they make their way around. Meanwhile, there's still units causing problems inside the main for HuK as State gets another DT in there. And finally, the vision comes out. Meanwhile, State is chasing down this army. And you know what? These Archons, a lot of Zealots, I don't think it's going to matter. Like you mentioned, with those 2 DT, or with those 2 Colossus, he now has his, extended thermal lance as well. That third is getting established for State. He's starting to find a ladder to climb out of. And I mean, you called it, like, HuK did not hit when he needed to.
He didn't seize the advantage. He's trying to do the air transition, but State spotted the air transition. This Warp Prism isn't getting any damage done either. Now, State could have maybe gone in there to try to attack the natural, but he said, you know what? Why risk it? With his third base coming up, I'm going to be ahead in economy. I scouted his plan, right? This is HuK's plan to counter the Colossi. State scouted it, and what he has to do is focus on the ground upgrades. Yes, the Tempest will pick off the Colossi eventually, but with the battle he won in the middle of the map, even if the Colossi go down, State with 3 bases can just outmass him in charge lots. And he can just go charge at Archon and just purely outmass HuK with the ground forces. He's also getting double forge upgrades behind us.
Yeah, and he really needed to get those started. So he's been focusing on them. The moment 1 was done, he went in on 2. Warp Prism still managing to get some damage done here, but finally he'll be chased out by the air army that has been growing here for HuK. Now, I want to ask, as this third continuously gets denied here by State, what do you think about State's decision to take the third above the main?
I really like that. If you know your opponent's going for a super late game transition, the Tempest, well, your goal is, okay, if he gets 3 bases, he can build up a huge air force, I may be in trouble. So my goal is to denying his third, and the best way to protect your third if you want to be aggressive is put it close to his third. So your army can kind of attack and defend at the exact same time.
He's trying to stop this third again, and is almost successful with an Axe Lab. He's going to move in on these units, but Blink helping out here, managed to get away, and he's going to meet up with the rest of his army. Are we going to have a full-on engagement here? The Tempest slow to get to the front of the line. The Zealots charge forward, and it looks like State is only going to lose 1 Colossus. No! 1 Colossus finally falling. He's also got a full energy mothership core. He's going to go ahead and recall out of there. Smart move as 2 additional Tempests come to reinforce that, and HuK continues to march forward, but he's got a really kind of crazy army comp left over. Just 4 Stalkers, 2 Immortals, 2 Void Rays, and then 4 Tempests.
The one thing going against HuK right now is he has a weaker ability to replenish those lost Zealots.
Yeah.
So if he doesn't get that Zealot tank in front of him, he lost all his Archons, he lost all his Zealots. Replacing those is going to be very difficult for him, as his third base is a little bit behind State's, but he has that huge Tempest core. Unless they can find a way to deal with that, it will continue to be very cost efficient as engagement after engagement occurs.
Yeah, in fact, the air upgrades have started as well for HuK, realizing that that's going to be a staple part of his army in order to try to achieve victory here. State, I think, as you mentioned, trying to figure out how exactly am I going to be countering this, and what happens if that Tempest count gets high. I mean, he blinks in, he now counts 5 Tempests, and at that point, you've got to be getting a little nervous, because how are you dealing with those in the position that he's in?
The hard thing for State there is, of course, Stalkers do excellent against Tempest, but you saw as he blinked in, there were 4 Immortals on the ground. Those Stalkers are not happy campers. State has got to make sure that he can deal with the Immortals, and that's all about your charge on your Archon count. If he can overwhelm HuK with charge on Archons, then have enough Stalkers behind there that once the Immortals are pushed out, they can blink in and finish off those air units. He's in good shape, but now he lost his economic advantage, and the supplies are very even as well. This is a great move here. That's going to go harass, pick up a few probes. Every probe is so important in a match like this.
Yeah, I mean, he's keeping HuK back, second guessing, going back and forth constantly to the third, to the natural, back to the third. And, you know, the third has never looked too rich for HuK. You know, even now only 13 workers on that Nexus. Prior to that, it took him so long to get this expansion up, and he's lost quite a few probes there just from the great harassment coming from State.
State's also going to Storm. He realizes, you know what? The Blink Stalkers are great against Tempest. If my opponent makes a lot of Void Rays, Blink Stalker's not so good against Void Rays once the numbers start to increase. He's going for the Side Storm because Void Rays, as you get a larger and larger number of them, they clump up more and more, and Storm becomes an excellent response. Oh, a lot of Stalkers being caught off guard there a bit.
Yeah, I'm not sure if he just kind of attack moved them into position, but quite a few did go down before he decided to actually blink out of there. Another attack here up the ramp at the third. Instantly, the Photon Overcharge does go down. And here we got HuK throwing in some more Zealots into the main base. He quickly takes out that cannon and now goes to work with some of the production buildings. And this has got to be hard. I mean, he can only deal with it based off Orbits. And now the Tempest moving forward to start the siege here against this third of State.
Oh man, State's got to find a way to deal with these Tempests. His main is being defended by DT, and he's distracting. He's doing a lot of damage to HuK's main with the DT as well. But HuK's army looks so intimidating. CT is just slowly dealing with the Zealots. They're sitting there looking like, hey, what's going on here?
Yeah, I mean, there is actually action going on all over. The DT's now working on the Stargates inside of HuK's main. HuK really wanting to commit to attack here, but realizing that the Tempest are going to be the key to his success here. He's doing a lot of damage that just cannot be answered by State, and I think State's finally just going to go ahead and say, I'm done with this, I got to push forward and go. Meanwhile, still dishing out the harassment inside the main. Looks like those DTs finally cleaned up.
Now State probably wants to get engagement pretty soon. HuK has a lot of resources in the bank. If you can turn those into more Archons and Zealots and keep the Stalkers back from State, it'll be in a very tough situation. State's looking for a more open engagement. I think he's found it.
Oh, and there's the Storms on everything. Just absolutely ripping through the Zealots. The Void Rays are going to fall. All that might be left here is our Mortals and the Tempest, but the Tempest take out the Colossus, continue to do some damage. There's a blink forward by State. The Tempest still very high in health, but now they're getting focused down individually by those Stalkers, and HuK has gone down to 71 supply. GG! State takes the game.
What a beautiful engagement there from State. He knew he needed an open situation, and he was so patient. He didn't charge down the ramp of his third. That's what HuK wanted. He kept trying to get him to charge down the ramp. State says not going to move to the left. When HuK moved to respond, that open battleground where all the Zealots just overwhelmed. And the key thing there was HuK's Immortals couldn't deal with the Stalkers because State's Zealots are just all over them.
Yeah, it was really interesting engagement. We're going to see it right here again. And notice when the Storms go down, there's not really, I mean, do you retreat? If you retreat, your army gets behind your Tempest, and then they're completely open, and the Stalkers take them out anyway. So, I mean, the Storms completely undodged at that point, too. It was a great engagement by State. Finally got the blink right underneath those guys to finish things up. And we are going to be going on to a third game. It's going to be on Whirlwind. We're going to take a quick break, but when we return, the conclusion of